Good early afternoon to you. How you all doing? Well, I'm doing a little project today. I'm going to try to make up that little camera slip mount that I was describing to you on the last video. The temperature is over 60 degrees. As a matter of fact, it looks like it's about 70. So, I got to work in a muddy area here because it's not so bad now, but with the thaw and everything in the snow, it's awkward to work here. Now, I went to my local hardware store, and I wanted a 1/4 to 3/8 inch thick piece of aluminum that I can drill and tap, because I got my tap and die set out here. This is the one that I got from my old boss at the vending company many years ago, back in the late 60s. And matter of fact, he's got his initials on here. 1/4 20, I was going to tap. This here is already a 1/4 inch, so I couldn't tap that. And this would have been perfect. This is a block, this is a solid piece of aluminum. And this is the piece of metal I bought for mounting the Kodak PlayTouch or the Kodak ZE-1 or the Sony Bloggy by bending this into a U-shaped. But I needed to secure a nut on the bottom. Now, I don't know how to weld, and I don't have a welder anymore anyways. Ideally, I was going to take and put the nut on here, and if I was able to weld, I could weld the nut on that and use that to screw in my tripod. So there'd be no more need to screw into the camera. Now, I'm using the Kodak ZE-1 here because its tripod mount is still in good shape. So I can mount that on this tripod over here, which is what I usually use for a distance shot in my workshop. But I can't use the Kodak PlayTouch on a tripod because if it falls off on this, it's going to do a lot of damage to the camera. So we can't get as close with this, of course. So looking through my junk box, which I save everything, I didn't have any thick stock, so I went to my hardware store, and they didn't have anything, I think about a 1/4 inch thick, but they want an arm and a leg for a piece, and I'd have to buy 3 or 4 foot of it, and it would put me in the poorhouse. Just for using, I only needed about 2 or 3 inches. Matter of fact, 2 inches would be just about right. So the option is couplers, 1/4 20 couplers, and I got one here and I got another one here, and the reason I picked this one out is this I can mount in a block of wood, put a bolt to it, and it won't turn on me. This is a 1/4 20, and I'm using this to try it out, and he had a 1/4 20 bolt, and he ran it in here and he ran it in here, and I bought an extra nut, which I've got 1/4 20 nuts. They want 12 cents for one damn nut, but you can't get a nut that's really thick. And one of my options was going to be is, of course, cut off about a 2 inch length of this 2x2, which is really 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and drill a shallow hole in here, drop the nut till it's flush to this, and epoxy it in place so it doesn't turn. But the nut isn't all that thick. Normally, I'd always want a thicker nut because the tripod mount on most of the cameras, I think, are at least 3/8 deep, I'm guessing. So you want enough thread to go in for the tripod to go in. So my intention is to drill down all the way through. This is 1.5 inches long, or just a hair over. Sink that in there and epoxy it in, probably, as I drill through, wedge a couple of pieces of wood on each side of this flat part so that when the camera is screwed in, in other words, a tripod is screwed into this, it's not going to turn on me. The other option, one was $2 and one was $1.65. I think this was $2. This is a little longer, and I could drill down through that. It's probably about a 3/8 hole, I'm guessing. Go down inside the wood with that and epoxy that into place. But I think I'm going to use this. So unfortunately, unless I can find another piece of wood, this is going to raise it up 1.5 inches. And then after I get that in, this will be bent into a horseshoe shape to about 3/4 of an inch. It'll probably be bent this way with this side up and this side up, so this will be long. I think this is 4 or 5 inches. I don't recall how long it is. I picked it up a few weeks ago from Home Depot. And this will be fastened to the wood. No bolts will come up through here. All the bolts will be, the bolt unit will be inside the wood here. But this whole thing is going to be 1.5 inches high at least. So it's no longer going to be able to be used on my camera boom mount. Other cameras can, but these flat cameras like the Kodak PlayTouch, the Kodak ZE-1, or the Sony Bloggy will not be able to be used on that camera boom. So I'm going to have to redesign that. But I can't risk having these sockets get ripped out of these things. The way I'm going to do this is the cameras are no longer going to be used. The tripod sockets will no longer be used. It'll be done on this. So if I want to use a full-size tripod, I'll have this unit ready. I'll probably cut this the length of this, and that's fine, and mount that on there. Now when I fold these up, I gotta pad this because I don't want to scratch the camera. And the camera's going to sit in there, and I might have some foam rubber or something in there to protect the camera and keep it from falling out when the camera gets turned on an angle. But as you know, there's a start and stop record button on the Kodak ZE-1, which will not be blocked. On the Kodak PlayTouch, it may or may not be, so I'll have to cut out a little area so it doesn't get blocked. But I do want enough to support the camera. On the Bloggy lays sideways, and like I say, the tripod sockets will not be used on these cameras. This is going to take its place. So I've done a lot of chattering on this, but while I'm discussing this with you, I'm also at the same time, my gray matter is being churned up, and to a point where I'm designing this thing as I go along. And that is the way I do things. I may draw a rough sketch on a piece of paper, but in reality, a lot of this stuff has been designed as I go out for coffee. I think about it and come up with some kind of idea. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to look for a piece of wood that's smaller, but you know what? I may not do that, because see how long this thing is? I don't want to shorten this. I need this flat part for support to keep it from turning. So what I think I'm going to do is to use the 2x2, cut it back, and go from there. So I think I did enough flapping. It's such a nice day today. I figured I'd get started on this. So let's get going and let's stop flapping. I brought out both the Kodak PlayTouch and the Sony Bloggy so I can get measurements. With the Sony Bloggy, of course, you gotta run it this way. So you got the button right here. On the Kodak Play Touch, you got to allow for this button. You got to have access to this. So it isn't going to be very easy to do this one. And it has to go this way. That's why I'm going to have it longer so it can accommodate the Bloggy. So this is going to have to sit this way with the front and the back folded up to probably over this, and I'm going to have to cut out for the, you know, an area so I can get into the, get at the button. I took careful measurements, and I would say 3/4 of an inch is sufficient, and that'll allow for padding in here. These I got for $1 a piece at a yard sale. I don't know what was in them. They're made by Dell, but they're some way padded. They got a foam. They got like a soft finish on them, and they're stretching. But I really can't use one of these in there because I'd have to cut out this rubber area here. This is what makes it nice and fits in tight. But I use these to put the Sony Bloggy in. And I have 2 of them, and one's for the Kodak Play Touch. So these, I have no idea, because I didn't think Dell made cameras, but whatever was in them, they fit the Bloggy and the Kodak Play Touch perfectly. So I bought those I don't know, about a month ago at a yard sale, the indoor flea market. Anyways, let me get started on this. We'll do one thing at a time. We got to cut this wood first and get this ready to accept this piece here. I got the drill bit already. I'm going to put it in the drill press. I'll do that off camera so I can go down straight, because if I try to drill this by hand, I'm going to start in the middle here and I'm going to come off on an angle on the other side. I always do, no matter how careful I aim the drill and think I'm going straight in. So I need to get this thing straight in. It can't be on an angle. I'll do all that off camera. I'll do all this cutting off camera. I need to cut this. I measured this. This is 5 inches. So we're going to cut this wood 5 inches long. I'll cut it off here. I'll do that off camera. Come back in a bit. All right, I drilled a 5/16 hole in here. And that will just fit that. And I'm going to have to tap it in so that these wings, which stick out, see this flat part here? It sticks out a little bit beyond that. That'll be perfect. I'll just hammer that right in there, flush it out, and I won't need to glue it or anything. And it lines up perfectly with the center hole here. So all I got to do is cut this off on the chop saw here. We'll do that off camera. We're going to pound this piece in here. We're going to do it this way, and I hope I don't split the wood. There's a possibility I could split the wood. Get a solid part of the bench here to work on. Out too well at all, is it? Well, I may have to go to a bigger drill, which is going to be 3/8, and it's going to flop in there. It's going to flop in there, so let's see if I can. I'm going to probably split the wood anyways. She's in there, and tripod goes in this end. We got to tap this down a little bit with the flush. Okay, I don't know if you can see that way I did it. This is where the tripod goes in here. So let's try it on the mini tripod. I'm using the full tripod here. Let's try it on the mini tripod. See how it works. you don't have to worry about it going in too deep because this thing is a good 3/4 of an inch in before it gets to the flattened part. So, alright, so then this piece will sit on top of this, will be screwed down onto this after I bend it into a U shape. So, the next step to this process is to bend this up. Now I'm going to do that in the shed. And this is not going to be easy. This is pretty heavy. This is not aluminum. This is galvanized. The first thing we're going to do before we do that, we got to draw the center line here. Alright, the center line here and on each side. It's not going to be precise, so I got 3/4 of an inch, but it could bend out a little more than that, but it's going to be padding in there anyways. I have no idea if this thing is going to work out or not, but let's give it a try. Well, I can only bend it over so far in the vise because the vise itself gets in the way. But we're not licked yet. Not yet. It may be in the future, but we're not licked yet. No, sir. Might be though. That came out crappy. I needed a piece of steel stock to bend it over on, square, and I don't have stuff like that. I'm not equipped for anything like that. Lousy. I'm not happy with that. But as I said, we're not licked yet. Better. Not perfect. By no means. But it's better. Still a little cockeyed. I only had a 3/4 inch piece of square stock, steel, that I can slam in the vise, pound the hell out of this. I know I could make it right. I could have used aluminum. It would have been easier probably me to bend, but the problem with that is it's expensive. Everything's so damn costly now. Let's see if I can... Well, off camera, I had to make some modifications. Not very many, but when I hammered this in, I wanted this flush, but it's not perfectly flush. It sticks out a little bit here. Not a big deal. But this sticks out also, so I had to make a hole in the middle of this on my drill press so that that fits in like that, so that that kind of like accepts this a little bit. so it sits flush, otherwise it was rocking like this. And because I want to mount this probably with small screws in these holes that are in here onto this wood. It's roughly about 1 inch high, so I'm going to have to get my cameras out and try them in here, but I got to pad this anyways. I can't put a camera in here. This here, it'll scratch it all to hell here. Well, let's very gently try the Kodak Play Touch. As you can see, it covers up the button. So I'm going to have to cut out where the button is. And it needs to be in this way. And it's a little tight, so I'm going to have to pull that out. Okay. Now again, I'm going to have to cut an angle here and a notch here on one side of this only. Alright, I cut a notch out of here. Kind of crappy job, but it's smooth. It's a smooth cut. But on this side, I have to cut a notch out of here in order to accommodate the button. But also there's a button here. This is not a touchscreen on this Bloggy. The one Tommy has is a touchscreen. This is not a touchscreen Bloggy. This has the buttons on it, up and down, you know, and all that. But anyways, I need to cut out for this. So I'm going to take some careful measurements because I don't want to cut too much because I got to accommodate the Kodak Play Touch also on the same thing. I don't want to make two of these things. This is a crappy job, but it allows me to get at the button right here on the Kodak Play Touch. Everything else is clear. I don't know how well this is going to hold in there. I got to put padding in here, so it's going to be the padding that's really going to hold it in. And now on the Sony Bloggy, the Sony Bloggy lens will clear here if you set it in here and slide it to fit here. And on the back, I have access to the button and the lower. There's two buttons here. There's one here and one here. Because like I say, this is not a Bloggy touchscreen. So the Bloggy can go over to the left like this. The lens shows here. Am I in camera? All right. So this is how it'll go. I don't know how well this is going to work out. It may be a total failure. If you see this video, I've succeeded. Well, it's not completed yet, but the way it's on here, you tighten it up on the tripod and you adjust it the way you want it. Within reason, it's just friction fit. And it can't be too high because it'll block everything that I need to operate the camera with. So it'll enable me, tighten this down first. Okay, now I can loosen this. Alright, so now let's try. I've got to be careful because there is no padding on this and I don't want to scratch this. I filed it as good as I can. This would be the Kodak Play Touch, and it clears the buttons. It'll sit straight up and down once I get the padding, the foam or whatever I'm going to put in here, and it needs to fit snug in here. And there's nothing here that will interfere by being pressed, and nothing on each side here, as long as I stay away from this button, which is what this V cutout is for here. See? Alright, so that takes care of the Kodak Play Touch. Now for the Sony Bloggy. Now this particular Sony Bloggy is going to be mounted this way. This is for the lens. So this is the top of the camera where your record button is, snapshot rather, and so forth. And the lens clears here. This V is not used because that is for the Kodak Play Touch. And it's not level, of course. I just stuck it in here. And on the other side, you can get at all the controls. So now the next thing I got to do is to pad this. Well, I have some of this stuff that my wife used for Christmas. It's felt. Unfortunately, it's red, but it's like a felt with an adhesive on the back. And I need real thin stuff in there. I tried some other foam in there. It was way too thick. I couldn't get the camera in there. So I'm going to put this on. I'll come back in our video when I get... Yeah, I can't even talk. I'll come back on the video when I get this done. Well, the damn Kodak ZE-1 hung up again. So I don't know how much of the video I got. I was trying to demonstrate how this works on the camera, and I looked at it and it was just a still image on the screen of the camera. These things are noted for hanging up. They're terrible. The Kodak Play Touch only hung up one time on me. So this is it. And I'm not on a tripod here. I'm hand holding this thing, but there's enough padding here. Let me try to demonstrate how it holds the cameras here. First, with the Kodak Play Touch, it fits in there, but not real tight, but I can wedge something more in there. Now, the Play Touch can go this way, or it could go this way, and I'll still be able to get at the button right here. Now I could jam the lanyard cord in here too. That'll tighten it up a little bit. But this stuff has adhesive on it, and I can always stick some more stuff in there. Alright, so that's the Kodak Play Touch, the Sony Bloggy. Let's see, the word Bloggy is on the top here. So the Sony Bloggy would be going in this way. Alright, so I can access the button right here, and the lens is accessible right there. So the Bloggy, as you can see, unless I'm really going crazy with it, stays in there really good. So this way I don't have to mount. I have to mess around with the tripod screw in the bottom of the camera anymore. I go directly into this, and I can swap out the cameras, and the Kodak ZE-1 should fit right in there without any problem. So that's it. Nothing fancy. And I can always add a little more of this felt in there to tighten it up a little bit. That's not a problem. I still got a good size sheet in the house. So if I need more, I can beef it up. So we're going to leave this out in the shed. Well, that's it for this project. Thank you for watching. You have a good day.
That'll teach you, you damn old goat.